first time is always the best.
Yes, sir. Looking at the political situation, sir, at what stage are we now, sir?
We are at a very critical juncture in the evolution of Nigeria's political history for a variety of reasons. If you look at how our politics has evolved, naturally everything goes through a state of maturity, of maturing. If you take a human being, they start out as infants, totally dependent on their parents. Then they begin to get into their early teens, and they think their parents are some ancients, and they were struggling for independence. You don't understand, daddy, that's your time, and all of that. Then they are 21, they are graduating. They suddenly begin to see the world a little differently. That's the age of interdependence. When you realize that you need your dad, you need your mom, but you have different ways. How do you interdepend to create great value? That's what Nigeria has been going through. Nigeria went through a beginning season of patriotic freedom fighters as the political class. And the basis of their competition led to excesses. What is the basis of the original competition? The original competition was who will most bring progress to their people in terms of ethnic nationality groups. So Bafemi Awolowo was a big champion of that era. He led off in many of the things. For example, industrialization. Started the Ikeja Industrial Estate. And the East pushing to show that they too can. Started Aba and Port Harcourt Trans-Amman Industrial Layout. The Salona started the Kakuri Industrial Layout. Bompai in Kano was emerging. This competition reached a certain stage of excess. And in the pushing for hegemony and for this and for that, those excesses boiled over into what became a coup d'etat. Unfortunately, we threw the baby out with the bathwater. We were not helped by the convergence of soldiers and oil. While the military were in power, oil, which had been discovered by 56, became significant commodity. Yom Kippur Arab-Israeli War, October 1973, led to the quadrupling of oil prices, and suddenly Nigeria had more money than it could manage. The net effect of all of that, economists will tell you about Dutch disease and the things that go with it. Our consumption rose dramatically. We were shopping like they used to accuse Arabs of London. Conspicuous consumption became part of our ways. By the time the military ran its course and we were leaving, the politics that had been established in Nigeria came to be referred to as bureaucratic prebendalism. An American professor called Richard Joseph had written a book, Prebendal Politics in Nigeria, in the business of sharing the national cake. And so politicians, soldiers, power was about state capture. Capture the state and use it to share broadly to your friends the fruits of power. Service to the people began to fall out of the scope of the politicians. It reached its very worst peak when, in the transition to civil rule of 99, most of the original politicians from the 60s and 50s did not trust the military that they would really leave power. So they stayed back in 79, except for a few. what happened was a lot of scoundrels and charlatans entered the space. And then oil prices went through the roof. And they used that money, personalized it, privatized it, and used it to raise barriers into entry into politics. The people who could now enter politics were thieves, literally thieves, or those who had essentially pillaged the state in one form or the other. And so Nigeria's politics became really a deadly descent into narcissism, this obsessive self-love, without thinking about the people. I mean, nothing speaks it better than the current condition where we have become the poverty capital of the world. Things are so bad. National Assembly is still spending money like they invented the thing. Everybody just, the average Nigerian politician of today thinks of politics without really knowing that's how he thinks of it, as government of politicians, for politicians, by politicians. The excessive nepotism, so long as you can take care of yourself, your friends, and all of that, somehow they don't understand that the rest of people exist. Something needed to happen on Nigeria would become Somalia. Now, if you look at this season and how it has evolved, it had reached a point where the level of incompetence in government is unbelievable. I mean, sheer incompetence, because the only basis for appointing was, are you a crony? Thinking people were not in government, very few if they're there. And those few that you may see are those who have given up. Let me go and chop my own. You know, after all, it was said by one minister, look at the man who was invited to chop. So they see government as chopping, not as self-sacrificing giving for the good of all. You go to government, one thing that you're pursuing when you go to government is immortality. The fact that you can work in a way that will make you be remembered forever. These guys don't understand that. They just see government as, how can you build up your bank account? And so Nigeria was in deep trouble. And in the middle of all of this, people like me who, as a matter of our professional life, our value system, read the tea leaves, began to say, look, it's not a matter of whether you are even a good person or a bad person in APC or PDP. The truth is that structurally, the way APC and PDP are set up, doesn't matter how good you are, if you go there, you're not going to be able to succeed. Because those parties, the kind of transactions, the trade-offs you have to make for power are such that the whole of your tenure you are paying off to those guys you traded off those things with. So in the end, progress for the people will remain zilch. But it will go back, like under Buhari, who went back decades. For me, it was a tragic thing. I'm not sure General Buhari will understand this. But he ended up being the worst leader Nigeria has ever had. I don't know if he knows this, because in power you don't know these things to shield you and tell you all kinds of funny things. And nothing has happened to you like since ice cream. Nothing has happened like you since ice cream. But here we are. One of the reasons I became very friendly with him was a shared view in ending corruption in Nigeria, at least bringing it under decent control. He and I spent a lot of time talking about this and how to do it. Sadly, his government ends up being the most corrupt in Nigerian history as far as my measured possibilities are concerned. So, you look at it now, you realize that it's a structural problem. You know, in structural economics, we have a paradigm that is called the structure, conduct, performance paradigm. It is the nature of the structure influences how you conduct yourself. And how you conduct yourself determines the performance. And clear. PDP, APC, structure, conduct, underperformance. We needed something new. I began to think about this. And people would call it the thought force. We began to work at it. Okay. And Nigerian people had it. You know, we're really fed up. We're looking for something. And once this phenomenon, when P2B came, joined Labour Party, and I said, hey, this is where we're going. It's not about me, it's not about power, it's about how to save Nigeria. Let's work together and deliver for Nigerian people. Well, one analytics agency, let's call them that, who I talked to 4 months ago, 5 months ago, said, Professor, this is your idealism. No, it's not, this is Nigeria, or you cannot. 2 weeks ago, they came back to the city and said, we want to apologize to you. We have done survey. We find that the man is leading everywhere. He even beats Bola Tinubu in Lagos, you know. So I said, well, it was not about me being extraordinarily gifted with any. It's just that in every situation, there have got to be prophets. And to recognize that people are suffering and suffering so badly, and that the system are structured, whether they are good people or bad people, are unable to redeem the suffering. The only thing you do is turn to a different way. And it turned out that the hand of God was in it all, and it's working out the way that it's working out. So this is where I think principles are the most important things in life. Look, after the 2007 elections, I was really despondent because no elections took place in 2007. The American late Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, and former Canadian Prime Minister, who were among the election monitors, I had lunch with them and they said to me, "Do people really call these elections?" I said, well, welcome to Nigeria. So I thought, no, this thing is not working. We have to find something different. This democracy is really, truly, as Fela said, them all crazy. Then Chivenaro calls me. Just when I said no more, I'm going back out of this arena, and says, no, progressives must get together and forge a new way. And that initiative, Chivenaro dies not too long after. Chief Olufalaye takes over. And Chief Falaye says, look, the best way to do this is, since people for their egos want to run, let everybody run, and let us then come together after we have run and decide to support one person. So I went off. We were founding this movement called the Social Democratic Mega Movement. I went on a trip abroad, came back, and Father says to me, we decided to form this party called the Social Democratic Mega Party. And we decided that you are going to be the chairman. I said, who? I said I was interested. He said, look, you are the one everybody else will trust. So we think for that you should be the chairman to make it easier for us to get the movement going. I said, if it will serve the common good, why not? Then I traveled again, came back. Wale Okuni said to me that the elders met. They think I should be presidential candidate. I said, Mike, I don't want that wahala. I don't have the resources to go and waste and see all the games they play. I said, look, your father says that the strategy that will work is all the presidential candidates of all these parties, since they're not willing to all come under one umbrella, we will get together and we will manage a process where they must all agree on one person. And when they agree on one person, then that person will go forward. And we think that you are the one who has the, what was the word you used? But the savvy to manage that kind of process. So we want to be presidential candidate. So that's how I became presidential candidate. I did plan to in 2011, and we were meeting in Abuja at the Pro Chair Maitama, General Buhari, Shekarau. Buhari was CPP, Shekarau AMPP, Faladiola and Nuhu Ribadu. All of us were meeting. And the idea that I would manage that process until only one person is left. In our personal conversations, we were agreed that we should support General Buhari because we thought it would be good to get somebody who has that broad support base already in the north and who will fight corruption. You understand is what, once he focuses on corruption, his deputy can focus on running the country in a steady way. That was our quiet understanding. But in the last minute, General Buhari failed to show up at the final meeting. Give him a second chance, he didn't show up. And in anger, I decided to endorse Brian Shekara. And withdrew at the last minute, just a few days to the elections. So
You withdrew?
Yeah.
Okay.
I called a press conference, endorsed Shekara, and we withdrew from it. Because that's where the principle we agreed from the beginning, that everybody must withdraw for one person. So there's only one candidate. So I said, if others won't do it, I will keep faith with principle. So I withdrew and called a press conference, supported Shekara. Shekara was shocked. He didn't even know I would do that. So he flew the next day to my house, to Lagos, and came to my house. At which I then formally, endorsed him. So anyway, that election went the way that it went. So it has never been about me. It's about what will make Nigeria work. And when I saw Peter Obi coming out of one of those major parties into this third force, I essentially just embraced him. It wasn't a difficult decision for me. If we can work together to save Nigeria, that's what's paramount for me, not whether I am given a title. Now, I like to remind people all the time, and I have found this very interesting, talking to public groups and MBA classes. In a way, it's an embarrassment to me and shocking to me how much that reveals of how much our people understand global history. But I often have asked in many classes, to my embarrassment, nobody, I said, who would you rather be? Mahatma Gandhi or Morarji Desai? In every circumstance, this is at least 4 classes, MBA classes, in LBS of all places, not going to talk about Ragtag MBA, in LBS, and then on 3 or 4 public forums now. The question was, who is Morarji Desai? And I said, this is a bit embarrassing, but Morarji Desai was Prime Minister of India. And Gandhi held no position in India. He wasn't minister, he wasn't prime minister, he wasn't party chairman. But if you say India, name one person, first name you hear from 90% of the audience, Mahatma Gandhi. I said, what I'm shooting for is a place in history more like Mahatma Gandhi than Morarji Desai. And I think Nigerians don't often have a capacity to understand that kind of orientation. So anyway, here we are, hoping on God's grace to be able to be remembered as part of those who delivered Nigeria.
But sir, let's talk about the candidate Peter Obi. What are the striking things he has that you seem to appreciate and you think would work for Nigeria?
But the starting point is humility. You cannot learn if you're not humble. If you are humble, then you can listen to those who know better and use their ideas to work. Fortunately, for me, I have known Peter Obi for many, many years. When he was governor, he called me frequently. When he had problems and issues, he would call me, ask my opinion. When funny things happened to him, he would call me and joke about it. So I know that he has a capacity to learn. So that's a very important thing. To be a great leader, you need humility. Second, I know that, and people make fun of it as I know they give shishi. What Nigeria desperately needs now is a leader who is not profligate. Look, I went with him to Washington to meet government officials. They opened it to 4 of the candidates. When the one before us went, he went with governors, all kinds of hangers on. The Americans were embarrassed. They didn't even have to. And P2B showed up with 2 men and 3 women. His wife, Aisha Yusufu, and one of the young activists, and myself, and one gentleman. Okay, this makes more sense, the American said. So that bombastic view of the leader as a man who goes with crowds, is going anywhere, people enter private jets, then 50 private jets accompany them. Nigeria needs to cut down on all that waste to focus on using resources to serve the people. That is impressive. Well, of course, competency. He's played in the private sector significantly. Because when I was chairman of a bank, he was the youngest chairman of a bank in the country. So that's private sector. He had built tremendous personal wealth as a trader, as he likes to call himself. And then he came into the public sector. He served. I saw his service in Anambra, principle driven, and the achievements. Of course, one of the most talked about is what happened in education, because Anambra had come down to the bottom. He took over, stubbornly insisted on some policies, and within 3 years, literally, that completely reversed the positions. Took Anambra from, like 26 in the federation in WASC to number 1. So, a collection of these made me believe that he would play well within what we had created, which we call the Collegial Leadership Council. A group of us, Usman Bugaje, Tola Mubului, at the time, Professor Jega, and a number of us, wanted to create a sense of collegial leadership, not one man hero that can solve all our problems. Collectively, a group of us can hold each other accountable and responsible to the Nigerian people. And I found that you could fit that better than the other people. And so it made it easy for me to make that decision.
Then, sir, I've also realized that for a lot of those who are running for the presidency, especially now, you seem to have worked with at least the top 4. So how do you cope when you see them when you...
I have no problem because, my fundamental drive, I suppose, is good for Nigeria. And I'll be very honest and tell them to their faces what I think and why I think so. I like to think of myself, and I'm very honest about this. I'm not Yoruba, but I like to see of myself as brought up in the classic Omoluabi tradition. That's how I see myself. It is those same values. How did I become interested in politics? I was always the so-called activist. But Papa, now you are the banjo. More than 20 years ago, let me part. I like what you are doing everywhere, but you will never change society as an activist. You have to become a politician. That's how I became active in politics. Baba, you are the banjo. And I thank God that there are still people like him who believe in principles. And so, people try to say to me, Atiku is your friend. I said, very much so. And he was still wearing customs uniform when we met and became friends. went to his office in the airport, this Mutar Mohammed Airport, and we sat and talked about his plans for retirement. And I helped to write the feasibility that he used to borrow money to start a farm while he was still in uniform. BAT, of course. Everybody knows my story with him and all of that. When you give service that I think is good, I mean, I served on the board of trustees of the university that Atiku founded, American University of Nigeria in Yola. So this is a friendship of more than 40-something years with BAT. I mean, everybody knows that. No, his nickname for me was Citizen.
Why is that?
I used to lead the retreats of the Lagos State Cabinet under existing. And when they want to ask me about payment, I said, this is my citizen's duty. So some of my schoolmates who went to Loyola with me, we were in the Lagos State government. You were not there. Uncle J, it was not citizen, you know. And throughout that period, you know, I can tell you till today, you will not see any gift of any sort that I ever received throughout all that commitment of hours of service. The late Rashid Baramasi came into one program because I worked so closely with Yemi Kadoso when he was commissioner for planning that you would think I was a full-time paid staff of the Lagos State government. One World Bank initiative on urban blighted areas, we prefer to call them that, sort of slums. Where I was program chair at Sheraton, and Chief was here entered. So he said, huh? You know, it was almost a full-time job. Never got paid a dime, and I'm proud of it. However, what still matters is not loyalty for loyalty's sake. What matters is what will make Nigeria work at this time. What will make it work yesterday is different. I mean, if I had to vote in 2019 between Atiku Abubakar and Muhammadu Buhari, I would have voted for Atiku Abubakar, no question. But because in the first term, General Buhari proved he didn't have the capacity to run Nigeria. Between him and Atiku Abubakar, Atiku was by far the better candidate. But well, that's the season. That season has passed. That window has closed. In this window, Nigeria needed a new direction. And UTOMI just fit the bill for this new direction. So it's all God's chemistry, in manner of speaking. And I have always had the feeling that my hands are too short to box with God. So if I see where God's hand is leading, I take it as providence and follow.
It's also true that maybe you helped in the drafting of the APC manifesto or something.
Help, okay. The BP is the one who's always talking about it. Sometimes I wonder, why is he talking about this thing? It was drafted in my house by himself, Oshibajo, myself, Wale were the principals of drafting that. We met every other day in my house for weeks until we finished writing it.
But there are those who also feel that Mr. Peter Obi probably doesn't have the capacity to handle the complexities of Nigeria as it is, looking at the various institutionalized players who still...
When I hear that, I usually wonder how shallow people's memories are. 20-something-year-old soldiers managed it. And then you say that a man who has run a successful business, run a state for 8 years, and has had this global exposure, been to the best universities in the world, doing all kinds of programs. That such a man cannot. Come on. Give yourself a break. There are so many ways people project prejudice, and they begin to couch it in all kinds of things. Oh, he can more than manage it. As I said when somebody asked me, do you think these men, all of them can run Nigeria, of course, but they will run it with different kinds of outcomes. Some of them we know as state capture champions. And the big problem of Nigeria is state capture. You know, I've served on the boards of South African companies. Whenever I go to board meetings in South Africa, they are screaming about state capture. And South Africa set up a commission, the Zondo Commission, to deal with state capture. They say, the Guptas, and the this, and the that. I say, sorry for you people. You are worrying about small things. If this is state capture, come to Nigeria and you will know real state capture. The Lebanese, the Indians, they own the economy, they work into government offices and out. The governors use their facilities, whether it's a hotel, anywhere, anyhow. And Nigeria won't make progress under state capture. We need to get rid of the state capture generation.
State capture.
Yeah. Most of these guys who are running are steeped in state capture.
And that should be replaced with what, sir?
We replace with people who are committed to service to the people. Their primary motivation is what will best serve the people. Can you imagine? Look, let me compare even in Nigerian history. When oil prices dipped in the mid-70s, what did the president or head of state at the time, Olusegun Obasanjo, what did he do? He immediately went to what was called low profile. No, the head of state himself, official car 504. 504. Everybody else, of course, goes down from there. Ban foreign travel for civil servants and politicians unless it's extremely critical. He must approve it himself. This is all to cut down government expenditure. Since Nigeria's budget crisis went into the hole and we're borrowing nearly 100% of our debt service and all of that. Have you seen Buhari reduce any cost? They're escalating cost. They're taking presidential jet and parking it in London for as long as they like. That's huge cost to Nigerian people. That's not leadership. And that's what happens to the soul of state capture. So, President like Peter Obi will not do that. First of all, he will not even travel in the presidential jet. One day, this is an irony, big irony. I was going into London one day, just by coincidence. We were not going together, we just met in the flight. But both BAT and myself were in first class of British Airways going to London, traveling separately. So, all I met to know.
Okay.
He and I.
Okay.
And as we were leaving there, I was feeling very faint. As we were leaving there, on the aircraft. And so he was working with me just to make sure that I was okay. So as we were walking down, I turned back and I saw somebody coming. I said, that's P2B. He was governor of Anambra at the time. So we slowed down until he came up. I said to him, where are you coming from? He said, I'm coming from Lagos. I said, no, you can't be coming from Lagos. We are coming from Lagos. He said, you go in front now. We, Mekunu like me, and BAT, former governor, were sitting in first class. To be governor, was sitting in premium economy. Going on official state duty, was going to the US. So you can see clearly his values. And I think that is important for this role that he's.
But sir, when each time you read about the negatives, I mean, the criticisms of UTOMI and all of that. How does it make you feel?
It's a free world. People will have different perspectives and everything. Even Jesus said that if everybody loves you, something's wrong with you. There are going to be people who don't like you just for being who you are. He's not perfect either. He has his shortcomings also. And so I don't put anything to it. I just take it as part of the general faith.
Anytime I think of Professor Pastor, my mind really goes back to someone who, in his early years, at the age of 32, you had, and since then, you've just watched Nigeria evolve and all that. And I'm wondering, how do you always feel when you look at Nigeria? I mean, from a close perspective, and you see all that is happening and where we are today.
Yeah,
How does it make you? How do you feel?
It's a run of emotions. Look, I respect the fact that God has been generous to me in terms of privilege, positions of privilege. I tell people that either while they were in office or after office, sometimes even before they were in office, I've had a personal relationship with everybody who has been head of state of Nigeria since I was 10 years old, except for Abacha and Murtala Mohammed. Everybody else since my age 10, so you will remove Balewa, maybe an Iransi. Everybody since then, General Gowon, my friendship with General Gowon goes back 40 years or so. My friendship with General Babangida from before and during his days in power, my friendship with Abdul Salam, all of these people I have known. So that's privilege. But for me, privilege brings responsibility. Responsibility not to self. In fact, I can see that none of all these men have ever done anything materially privileging to me. None of them. I've never asked. I've never received. So having had a ringside seat in history, I recognize the pain that it brings to a person who wants things done right. I could have chosen to take advantage of these privileges, make myself a lot of money or something. Which leads to a very interesting question that I was asked by Ben Murray Bruce. In 2009, I just moved into a house in Ikoyi, and Ben came to see me and said, "Thank God, let me even see one thing that you have never done for yourself." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Look, I've been meaning to ask you, why do you hate money?" I said, "Me, evangelist of free enterprise, how can I hate money?" I don't hate money. I just like, first of all, to see things done right. And secondly, I like to invest more in people than in material. And so I know that there are dozens of younger people than myself, who will say, but for them, Ben says, look, I can name a number of people who are multimillionaires standing on your shoulder, but you still live so modestly. Most everybody knows you don't have money. I said to them, those people you talk about are more assets than any money anybody can have. I told him a story. I said, look, when I was leaving industry, I was leaving Volkswagen. Nobody pushed me. I just said, this is not the game plan I would like to see here. This industry is going to die. So I will leave. So I resigned. And I pushed back some people who were very close to me. Alhaji Bamanga Tuku was then serving as minister. As Oba Oladile Olashori, two people I was very, very close to. There was nothing they did not do to get me to withdraw my resignation. I said, no. And I promised I would on my 38th birthday, which is the truth. I said, the longest I'll stay in industry to my 38th birthday, because I want to go and spend time teaching others what I have learned. And one day I woke up, it was 3 months to my 38th birthday, I wrote my letter of resignation. I said, this is the promise I made myself. And I became a teacher, and everybody said I was going to die of starvation. How can I? Nobody has ever resigned from executive position to go and be a teacher. I said to them, watch me. But what happened when I got into teaching? Suddenly teaching became glamorous. Everybody now wanted to be a teacher. I was making more money from just public speaking than I was making as an executive in industry. You know, so it taught me not to put anything on material possession. But you know, once I began to walk that track, I began to see the value in investing in people, especially those who had nothing or who did not know where they were going. So one day I called my research assistant. I said, I'm trying to find some smart young people who may not know where they're going, but are smart. Help me identify like 20 of them. As my research assistant went, identified a group of these young people, I invited them to lunch. And we talked about how they could shape the future of Nigeria. Not politics, because as visionaries, as entrepreneurs, as whatever. Do you know among those who were in that group? Fela Durutoye, Nia Desonga, Little Bon King, Ubong Essien, Feb Idahosa.
Okay.
Bishop Idahosa now. And a bunch of them. None of them failed to make it to the top grade in what they did. None. So, if that's all that I die with, I will be very happy. But I've had to go through a second generation after these guys and did the same thing with the Debola Williams and Chidej Donwas. And now a third generation, the Benga Jais and co. So my focus has always been on people. How do you invest in people and earn yourself immortality? So sitting in these places and watching Nigeria, I sometimes feel deep pain. Deep pain that the potential of Nigeria could have been achieved a long time ago. Deep pain because I know that Nigeria has the capacity for a $20,000 per capita income and people living harmoniously with one another in a full employment economy. The talents, the endowments are all here, but just bad politics and poor leadership has kept Nigeria back. That causes pain. Thank God that I'm a Christian. And to be a Christian is to be a person of faith. And in faith, hope is everything. I know that God's time is the best. Absolutely convinced Nigeria will amount to Fela Durutoye's dream of the most attractive place to live in the world.
Thank you very much, sir.